After years of rumors and speculation about the remake of Persona 3, and after waiting for its official presentation, one of the most important Japanese role-playing titles of recent decades is finally coming to the hands of the owners. Persona 3 Reload is not only tasked with satisfying the old audience of the original game, it should also appeal to millions of new fans of the series and lovers of Persona 5. The game kicks off with a transfer student, that's you, arriving at Tatsumi Port Island Station just before midnight. Not long after he steps off the metro, the clock strikes 12, and the world around him shifts into what he'll later learn is the Dark Hour, a space outside of time where shadows roam free, consuming the minds of the city's inhabitants. Strange coffins litter the streets where people once stood, illuminated by a gigantic green moon that nearly consumes the sky. After making your way to the dorm, you're quickly introduced to a few of your fellow classmates who are just as surprised to see you as you are to see them walking around the dorm with what appear to be guns strapped to their hips. Not long after, you'll learn that they aren't exactly guns, but rather evokers tools used to summon a user's persona to do battle against the shadows. How do you learn this? Well, by pointing a would-be gun to your head in the heat of the moment and pulling the trigger. It sounds problematic, right? Well, it kind of feels that way at first, but you eventually get used to it. Not long after being initiated into the Persona user-exclusive task force, specialized extracurricular execution squad, or sees you find yourself thrust into the core gameplay loop that will occupy and entertain you for the next 80 to 90 hours it takes to complete the game. You'll spend most of your days attending classes, strengthening your bonds with fellow classmates, and improving your social skills, while your nights will be filled with studying, extracurricular activities, and climbing Tartarus, the shadow-ridden Tower of Demise. After being introduced to a slew of initial tutorials, you are set free to manage your days how you see fit. It wasn't long after that I found myself having to thoughtfully plan each day in order to both advance the bonds and individual storylines of the characters, while also leveling up my social skills and preparing for my next visit to Tartarus. There is so much content to experience, and even though you have 9 calendar months to do so, that time can quickly get away from you, resulting in certain bonds and stories not being fully explored. Some of the individual storylines were easy to get swept up in, like the old couple mourning the loss of their son, or the young girl I befriended at the shrine who was struggling with her parents' divorce, while others were a little more challenging to get through all 10 bond levels, like the con man who made me pay 50,000 yen to become his protege, forcing me to speed through his bad advice with each encounter. Regardless of how interesting each story was, the bonds themselves were worth developing, as they had a direct impact on the power of the personas I could fuse, ultimately influencing how capable I was in defeating the hordes of shadows I'd face in the Dark Hour. When the Dark Hour begins each night, the school you attend each day transforms into a giant tower known as Tartarus. Each night that you choose to venture inside, you'll fight your way through hordes of shadows as you climb through hundreds of floors, confronting the occasional big boss and uncovering secrets of the Dark Hour's origin along the way. Combat will feel familiar to Persona 5 veterans. You can use your equipped weapon to initiate a physical attack, or use your evoker to summon your personas to deal some form of magical damage or enhanced physical damage to the enemy. Reload elevates combat well beyond the original. Directly controlling your whole party is a serious game changer, for one thing. Things like boss battles and rare enemies feel more approachable. Not easy exactly. You can just be more specific in your strategies. What does make things easier is the shift system. While criticals and weak point hits still get you an extra turn, now you can pass that turn to another party member. This increases your odds of continuing the chain, which can turn the tide of battle. 3G strikes are more of a cool bonus than a serious game changer. But really, any advantage in a Persona game is a welcome one. And yet, the improved combat system is also a problem for pacing. Major story events are locked to the calendar. This means Tartarus, the dungeon, has progress gates that only unlock after a certain date. So you can get to the end of the dungeon in a couple days, if you're good enough. So now that School Social Dungeon Loop is just School Social, not only is this a little dull, but ignoring Tartarus can have serious consequences, like being wildly underleveled for the final section of the game. Tons of new features have been added, including the ability to rewind your day and perform special moves while fighting in Tartarus. These special moves are called jrpg, and are essentially signature abilities that each character can learn by doing dorm activities. Dorm activities are another new feature that was added that gives more meaning to staying indoors than just sleeping or studying. There are other additions to the dorm, like gardening on the roof, using a shared computer to use CDs and look things up, and studying with the others during midterms and finals week. Tartarus also encourages you to do more exploring than before, with the aforementioned Twilight fragments and locked chests. You can experience newly added monad doors, monad passages, and lost civilians who have wandered into Tartarus. Elizabeth will occasionally ask you different requests, requiring you to go into Tartarus to search for things. Overall, the main story is engaging, but fairly slow-paced, with the occasional big moment or twist being revealed every 10 hours or so. There were a handful of well-made cutscenes that were sometimes delivered using the in-game graphics, and sometimes with a hand-drawn anime-style cinematic. Like the other games in the series, Persona 3 Reload has a dark tone, though possibly one a bit more mature than its counterparts. The story explores concepts like mourning the loss of family, suicide and self-harm, failure and regret, all of which makes the reality you find yourself in that much more believable, and the stakes you are facing as high as they can get. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you had fun and found it useful. If you did, please smash that like button and share this video with your friends. Also, make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. I love reading your comments, so leave me one below and tell me what you thought of this video and what you want me to do next. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.